The hall was already full when the boy stepped inside. It was not a small place. The ceiling was high, stretching far above his head, and the walls carried every sound like they were listening to. Soft voices echoed across the room as people talked, laughed, and judged without even realizing they were doing it. Chairs were lined in neat rows, all facing forward. At the front stood a black grand piano, clean and shining under the bright lights. Waiting in silence, the boy paused near the door. He did not rush in like the others before him. He did not look confident or excited. His shoulders were slightly bent, and his hands stayed close to his body, almost like he was afraid to take up too much space. His clothes were simple, not torn or dirty, but old, the kind of clothes that had been washed so many times that their color had slowly faded away. People noticed him. Some looked only for a second, before turning back to their conversations. Others leaned toward each other and whispered quietly. A few smiled, but not with kindness. Their smiles carried curiosity mixed with doubt. "What is he doing here?" someone murmured. "He looks lost." Another voice replied. The boy heard some of it. He always did. Over time, he had learned to walk through judgment quietly, like walking through rain without an umbrella. You cannot stop the rain. You just keep moving and hope it ends soon. He took a slow breath and walked forward. Each step echoed softly against the floor. He stopped near the piano, standing just a few feet away from it. A list of performers was taped to the side of the stage. Names were crossed off, one by one. Only a few remained. The boy's turn was coming. He looked at the piano again. It was large, powerful, and completely silent. For a moment, his chest tightened. Memories rushed in without warning. Sounds he could never forget. A small room with cracked walls. A broken bench that wobbled every time he sat down. A piano with missing keys and notes that never sounded right. His throat felt dry. He swallowed and breathed in slowly. Across the room stood a man with his arms folded tightly across his chest. He was well dressed, wearing clean shoes and smooth clothes. His posture was straight, and his face carried confidence. He looked like someone who was used to being listened to, used to being right. When his eyes landed on the boy, his mouth curved into a smile that never reached his eyes. "This is who's playing next," the man said loudly, making sure everyone heard. A few people laughed. The man shook his head slowly. "If that boy plays the piano well," he said, his voice clear and proud, "I'll kneel right here." The words spread through the hall. Some people gasped softly. Others smiled, already waiting for embarrassment to unfold. A few felt uncomfortable, but stayed silent. Unsure whether to speak, the boy heard every word. His face did not change. Not because it didn't hurt, but because he had felt worse before. Much worse. He walked toward the piano bench. Each step felt heavy, like his feet were sinking into the floor. Still, he did not stop. The hall slowly grew quieter as he sat down. Conversations faded. Even the whispers ended. The bench felt cold beneath him. The piano keys were smooth and cool under his fingers. He placed his hands gently in his lap and lowered his head. His eyes closed for a brief moment. Nothing happened. Someone coughed. A chair shifted. The proud man shifted his weight, already losing interest. Then the boy lifted his hands. They hovered over the keys, shaking just a little dot inside him. A storm was moving. He was not thinking about the crowd, not about the man, not even about proving anything. His thoughts were far away, drifting through memories he never spoke about. Nights without sleep, empty stomachs, long silence that felt heavier than loud noise, and a voice from the past that once whispered, "Play, even when the world does not listen." His fingers touched the first key. The sound was soft, not loud, not fast. Just one gentle note that floated into the room. Something changed. People stopped talking. The boy pressed another key, then another. Slowly, a melody began to form. It was not a song anyone recognized. It followed no clear rules. It was not trying to impress anyone. It moved like a memory, slow and careful, honest and real. The boy's shoulders relaxed slightly. His fingers began to move with purpose. They knew where to go, even when his mind felt unsure. The piano responded warmly, as if it had been waiting for him all along. A woman in the second row leaned forward without realizing it. A man near the back slowly lowered his phone. The proud man frowned. This was not what he expected. The music grew stronger, but not louder. It carried emotion instead of volume. Pain wrapped gently inside hope, loss walking quietly beside courage. Every note felt like it had a story behind it. The boy's face remained calm, but his eyes told another story. They were focused, yet distant, like he was somewhere far away. With each note, the hall felt smaller. The piano spoke in a language older than words. A child in the crowd stopped, fidgeting. Someone wiped their eyes without knowing why. The boy pressed the keys gently, then firmly, letting the sound rise and fall like breathing. His hands moved faster now, but never rushed. Every note felt important. Every pause felt meaningful. The proud man slowly uncrossed his arms. His smile had disappeared. He leaned forward slightly, watching closely, his head tilted as if trying to understand something that no longer fit his beliefs. The boy reached a pause. Silence filled the room. No one clapped, no one moved. Then he continued. This part of the song was different, deeper, heavier. The notes carried weight, like footsteps on a long road that never seemed to end. You could feel the tiredness inside them, the struggle, the quiet strength of someone who keeps going even when no one is watching. The boy's fingers trembled for just a second. He adjusted his hands. He did not stop. The piano rang out, clear and true. The proud man swallowed hard. Something inside him shifted. Around him, faces had changed. There was no mocking now, no laughter, only attention, real attention. The boy leaned closer to the piano, almost as if listening to it speak back to him. He played like someone telling a secret they had held inside for too long. The lights above felt warmer, the air felt heavier, time seemed to slow down. Then, just before the song reached its deepest part, the boy slowed again. His hands rested on the keys. The final note of this section hung in the air, trembling softly, refusing to disappear. The boy did not look up. The hall remained silent. Everyone waited. No one yet understood what this song truly meant, and the proud man stood frozen, unsure for the first time whether his words would soon return to him. The boy kept his hands resting on the piano keys. The sound of the last note slowly faded into the air, becoming softer and softer until it was almost gone. Still, no one moved. No one spoke. It was not the kind of silence filled with boredom or waiting. It was deep and heavy, like everyone in the hall was holding the same breath at the same time. The boy's shoulders rose and fell, gently as he breathed. He was still not looking up. Inside him, memories rushed back faster now, not only the painful ones, but the small moments of hope too, quiet moments that no one else ever saw, nights when the world felt too heavy, and music was the only place where he felt safe, moments when he felt invisible to people, but never invisible to sound. His fingers stayed still for a moment longer. Then he began to play again. This time, the melody changed. It was softer, but clearer, like the calm morning after a long and tiring storm. The notes felt open, almost honest. They did not hide anymore. They did not try to protect themselves. They spoke freely, without fear. The sound slowly filled the hall. People felt it in their chests before they understood it in their minds. It was not something they could explain with words. It was something they felt deep inside, like a memory they didn't know they still carried. A woman near the front pressed her lips together. trying to stop her chin from shaking. She did not know why tears were forming in her eyes. Nothing in the music reminded her of her own life, clearly, yet it touched something real inside her. A man standing near the back slowly sat down. He had not planned to. His legs simply felt weak. He placed his hands on his knees and stared ahead, listening with his whole body. The boy's fingers moved smoothly now. There was no shaking, no doubt. The piano was no longer something placed in front of him. It felt like it was part of him, like his own voice finally had a way to speak. His hands knew exactly where to go, as if they had been waiting for this moment their entire life. The proud man stood still. His face no longer showed confidence. For the first time, he felt small. The music continued, steady and calm. It carried the sound of long walks taken alone, quiet nights spent awake while the world slept, the effort no one ever noticed, the strength it takes to keep believing when nothing seems to change. It told the story of someone who had been ignored many times, but never stopped moving forward. The boy's eyes finally opened. They were not sad. They were not angry. They were calm. He looked only at the piano, not at the people. He was no longer playing for approval. He was not playing to prove anything. He was playing because this was his truth, because this was the only honest way he knew how to speak. The melody slowly grew stronger. Again, not sharp, not loud, just full. It sounded like forgiveness, like letting go of something heavy that had been carried for too long. The proud man felt his throat tightened at his chest, felt heavy. He remembered his words clearly now. If that boy plays well, I'll kneel. At the time, the words had felt funny, easy to say, safe, because he believed there was no chance he would need to keep that promise. Now, those same words felt heavy. They pressed down on him, reminding him how quickly judgment can turn into regret. The boy reached the final part of the song. This part was simple, only a few notes each. One landed gently, like footsteps coming home after a long journey. There was no rush, no need to impress, just truth, laid softly on the keys. The hall felt warm, the lights felt softer. The boy played the last note, and then he stopped. Silence returned. But this silence was different. It felt complete. For a few long seconds, no one clapped. Not because they didn't want to, but because no one wanted to break the feeling. It was like waking up from a meaningful dream and needing a moment to remember where you are. Then one person stood slowly. It was an older man sitting near the aisle. His hands trembled slightly as he began to clap. The sound was soft at first, careful, respectful. Then another person joined him. Then another. Soon, the sound grew stronger. The hall filled with applause. Not wild, not noisy, but deep, steady, and full of respect. The boy remained seated. He did not smile. He did not bow. He simply closed his eyes for a moment and let the sound move through him. He felt it in his chest, like warmth spreading slowly. Then something unexpected happened. The proud man stepped forward. As soon as people noticed him moving, the applause slowly faded. The room grew quiet again. Every eye turned toward him. He walked to the open space. Near the piano, each step felt heavier than the last. He stopped, took a deep breath, and then, slowly, he knelt. The room froze. No one laughed. No one whispered. This was no longer a joke. The proud man lowered his head, not in shame, but in understanding. I spoke without knowing, he said quietly. His voice shook as the words left his mouth. I judged what I did not understand. He lifted his head and looked at the boy. Your music taught me something today. The boy looked back at him. For a moment, he said nothing. He stood up slowly. He was shorter than the man, smaller, quieter, but the space between them felt equal. The boy gave a small nod. That was all. The hall erupted again, louder than before. People stood from their seats. Some clapped with tears in their eyes. Others smiled through emotions they did not expect to feel when they walked into the hall that day. The boy stepped away from the piano as he walked toward the exit. People moved aside without being asked, not because someone told them to, but because respect now guided their actions. Someone reached out as if to stop him, then pulled their hand back, unsure. The boy passed gently through the crowd at the door. He paused. He turned and looked back once, not at the people, but at the piano. He smiled softly. Then he walked out. Outside, the air felt cooler, quieter. The noise of the hall stayed behind him. He took a deep breath. For the first time in a long time, his chest felt light. He did not know what would happen next. He did not know if this moment would change his life forever. But he knew one thing. He had been heard. Inside the hall, people slowly sat back down. No one spoke for a while. The proud man remained kneeling for a few seconds longer before standing and returning to his place. He felt different now. Not perfect, but changed. The piano sat silently at the front of the room, again, but it no longer felt empty. It felt full of something that would stay long after the crowd left. That night, many people carried the boy's music home with them. Some thought about the way they judge, others too quickly. Others thought about chances they never gave. And some simply remembered how it felt to be moved by something real. As for the boy, he walked forward into the night. Not famous, not rich, but stronger, because sometimes one song is enough to change a room, and sometimes that is more than enough.